6 months had passed since the day in the throne room. 6 months since a janitor became a teacher. 6 months since the empire began to change. Tae-woo still woke early every morning, a habit from his days cleaning floors in the dark. But now he woke in comfortable chambers near the royal wing. Now he dressed in proper clothes, not a worker's uniform. Now his daughter slept in a real bed with soft pillows and warm blankets. It felt like a dream. Some mornings, he expected to wake up and find himself back in the storage room, pushing a mop through empty hallways. But the dream was real. Appa! Sora came running into his room, her hair still messy from sleep. It's lesson day. Liara is already waiting. Tae-woo smiled and let his daughter pull him through the hallways. The palace guards no longer looked at him with suspicion. Some even nodded respectfully as he passed. A few had asked him to teach their own children human phrases. The classroom was no longer a hidden storage room. It was a proper space with windows and books and comfortable chairs. The walls were covered with drawings and maps and pictures of Earth. Liara had insisted on decorating it. Herself, the princess, was already there when they arrived. She sat at a low table, her books arranged neatly before her. When she saw Sora, her face lit up with joy. "Sister," Liara called out. It was a word Tae-woo had taught her. It meant something different than the Valorn word for sibling. It meant someone you chose to love, not just someone you were born with. The two girls embraced like they had been apart for weeks, not just a single night. They giggled and whispered secrets that Tae-woo pretended not to hear. He opened his teaching book and began the day's lesson. Today they were studying human history. Liara was fascinated by stories of Earth. She loved hearing about oceans and mountains and cities built by billions of people living together. Why did humans fight so many wars? Liara asked during a story about ancient kingdoms. Tae-woo considered the question carefully. Fear, mostly. Humans were afraid of each other for a very long time. Afraid of people who looked different, or spoke different languages, or believed different things. "But you are not afraid of us," Liara said. "We look very different from you. That is because I have learned something important." Tae-woo smiled gently. Fear comes from not knowing. When you know someone, when you understand them, the fear goes away. You are not strange to me anymore. You are just Liara, my student, my daughter's best friend. Liara thought about this for a long moment. Then she nodded seriously. "I will remember that," she said. "When I am empress someday, I will make sure everyone knows each other. Then no one will be afraid." Tae-woo felt his heart swell with pride. This was why he taught. Not just to share knowledge, but to plant seeds of kindness that will grow long after he was gone. The lesson continued until midday. Then something unexpected happened. The door opened and Empress Valina entered. This had become more common lately. The Empress would appear at lessons unannounced, claiming she wanted to observe the teaching methods. But Tae-woo noticed that she rarely watched him teach. Instead, she watched her daughter laugh and play and grow. Today, however, Valina spoke. "The lesson will end early today," she announced. "I wish to speak with the tutor, privately." Sora and Liara exchanged worried looks. But Tae-woo simply nodded and told the girls to go play in the gardens. When they were gone, he turned to face the Empress. "Is something wrong, Your Majesty?" Valina walked slowly around the classroom, examining the drawings on the walls. She stopped at a picture Sora had drawn months ago. It showed 3 figures holding hands: a tall man, a small girl with messy hair, and a small girl with silver skin. "My council has been pressuring me," Valina said. "They believe your influence is weakening the empire. They want me to send you away." Tae-woo felt cold fear grip his heart, but he kept his voice steady. "And what do you believe, Your Majesty?" Valina was quiet for a long moment. Then she turned to face him. "I believe they are right. Your influence has changed the empire. My daughter speaks of peace and understanding. She treats servants as equals. She says she wants to be strong with love instead of strong with power. Valina paused. These are not Valoran values. I see. Taewoo lowered his head. Then I will prepare to leave. I was not finished. Taewoo looked up, surprised. Valina's expression was strange. It was not angry or cold. It was something he had never seen on her face before. Something almost vulnerable. My council says these are not Valoran values, she continued. But I have begun to wonder if perhaps they should be. She walked closer to him. Close enough that he could see the faint lines around her violet eyes. Close enough that he could see she had not slept well. For 200 years, I have ruled through fear, she said softly. My subjects obey me because they are afraid of what I will do if they disobey. My allies support me because they are afraid of what my enemies will do if I fall. Even my own daughter was afraid of me. And now? Now she hugs me when I enter a room. Now she tells me she loves me before she sleeps. Now she looks at me with joy instead of fear. Valina's voice wavered slightly. I do not deserve this. I have done nothing to earn it. But she gives it to me freely because you taught her that love is given freely. Taewoo shook his head gently. I did not teach her that, Your Majesty. She already knew. She just needed permission to express it. Valina was quiet. Then, slowly, she reached out and touched his hand. It was a small gesture, barely there. But for a Valoran empress, it was revolutionary. You have done something no one else could do, Kang Taewoo. You have melted the ice in my daughter's heart. And somehow, without meaning to, you have begun melting the ice in mine. Taewoo felt his breath catch. Your Majesty, Valina. She looked at him steadily. When we are alone, you may call me Valina. That would not be proper. Many things about you are not proper. A small smile appeared on her lips. Yet somehow, they feel right. She withdrew her hand and turned toward the window. Outside, the stars shone in the endless darkness. Somewhere among them, Earth still existed. Broken and empty, but still there. My council wants me to send you away, Valina said. But I have made a different decision. I am going to change the law. Humans will no longer be classified as lower species in the Empire. They will have the same rights as any Valoran citizen. Taewoo stared at her in shock. Your Majesty, Valina, that would change everything. Yes, she turned to look at him. That is the point. My daughter wants to be an empress who is strong with love. I want to show her that such a thing is possible. I want to show myself that such a thing is possible. She paused, and her next words were soft. I want to prove that the invisible man who taught my daughter was right. That kindness is not weakness. That love can be stronger than fear. Taewoo felt tears beginning to form in his eyes. He thought of Yuna, of her last words asking him to keep their daughter safe and to never stop being kind. He thought of all the nights spent cleaning floors and wondering if he would ever matter to anyone again. Thank you, he whispered. Valina shook her head. Do not thank me. Thank yourself. You walked into the heart of an empire that despised you, and you changed it with nothing but patience and love. You are the strongest person I have ever known. She moved toward the door. But before she left, she paused and looked back. Tonight, I will be on the observation deck, watching the stars. I often go there when I need to think. She hesitated. If you happen to be there as well, I would not mind the company. Then she was gone. Taewoo stood alone in the classroom, his heart beating fast. He looked at the picture on the wall. 3 figures holding hands. Maybe someday there would be a 4th. That evening, as the station turned slowly through the stars, 2 figures stood together on the observation deck. They did not touch. They did not speak of love or destiny or the future. They simply stood side by side and watched the universe spin past. And somewhere in the royal gardens, two little girls lay on their backs, looking up at the same stars. Will our parents ever be happy? Sora asked. Liora smiled. They are learning. Father says learning takes time. Father? Sora looked at her friend with wide eyes. Liora laughed. Not yet. But someday. I can feel it. She reached out and took Sora's hand. Someday, we will be real sisters. And our family will bridge the stars. Above them, invisible against the darkness, Empress Valina glanced at the human standing beside her. He was looking at the stars with an expression of peaceful wonder. She did not know what the future held. She did not know if she could truly become the Empress her daughter believed she could be. But for the first time in 200 years, she was willing to try. And that, perhaps, was the most human thing of all. Taewoo did not sleep that night. He sat on the edge of a real bed in a real room, watching his daughter finally rest peacefully. The guest quarters were simple by Valoran standards, but luxurious beyond anything Taewoo had known since Earth Dawn. There were soft blankets, clean water, windows that looked out at the stars, and guards at every door. He was not foolish enough to think they were safe. The Empress had spared them tonight, but morning would bring judgment. Perhaps she was simply waiting until witnesses could gather. Perhaps she wanted to make an example of them before the entire court. Perhaps these comfortable quarters were just the last. Kindness before death. Taewoo looked at Sora's sleeping face. She looked so peaceful, so innocent. She did not understand the danger they were in. She only knew that her friend's mother had let them go. He reached out and gently brushed hair from her forehead. Whatever happened tomorrow, he would face it calmly. He would not let his daughter see him afraid. But as the hours passed and dawnlight began to creep through the window, something unexpected happened. No guards came to take them away. Instead, a servant arrived with breakfast. Real food, not the processed nutrition blocks that workers received. Fresh fruit and warm bread, and something that smelled like real eggs. Sora woke to the smell and ate eagerly. Taewoo forced himself to eat too, though every bite felt like it might be his last. Then the door opened again, and a tall Valoran official entered. The Empress wishes to see you, he said coldly. Alone. Your daughter will remain here. Taewoo's heart clenched, but he nodded and stood. He kissed Sora's forehead and told her to be brave. Then he followed the official through the winding corridors of the palace. He expected to be taken to a throne room, filled with nobles calling for his blood. Instead, he was led to a small private chamber. The walls were lined with screens showing surveillance footage. The only furniture was a simple chair and a desk. Empress Valina sat behind the desk, watching a screen. Sit, she said without looking at him. Taewoo sat. His hands trembled slightly in his lap. For several long minutes, Valina said nothing. She simply watched the screen. Taewoo could not see what she was viewing, but he could hear faint sounds. A man's voice reading. Children laughing. Pages turning. She was watching recordings of the secret lessons. How long? Valina finally asked. Almost 2 months, Your Majesty. 2 months. Valina's voice was flat. For 2 months, my daughter has been sneaking through the station to meet with a human janitor. For 2 months, she has been learning a primitive language and primitive ideas. For 2 months, my spies and guards saw nothing. Taewoo said nothing. There was nothing to say. Valina touched the screen, changing the footage. Now it showed Liora learning to say new words. She looked frustrated at first, struggling with the strange sounds. But Taewoo on the screen was patient. He repeated words again and again, never showing frustration, never raising his voice. My daughter has had the finest tutors in the Empire, Valina said slowly. Scholars from 12 systems, experts in every field of knowledge. None of them could make her smile like this. She changed the footage again. Now it showed the two girls drawing together. Sora was showing Liara how to draw a flower. Liara's attempt was clumsy, but Sora praised it like it was a masterpiece. She has never had a friend, Valina said. Her voice had changed slightly. It was softer now, almost sad. I did not allow it. Friends are weaknesses. Attachments are chains. I was raised to believe this. I raised her to believe it too. Tawu gathered his courage. May I speak, Your Majesty? Valina turned to look at him for the first time. You may. I understand why you think that way, Tawu said carefully. You are an empress. You have enemies everywhere. Anyone close to you could be used against you. It makes sense to keep your heart cold. Valina's eyes narrowed. But children are not empresses. They are just children. They need warmth and love and friendship to grow properly. A flower cannot bloom in ice. Are you calling my daughter a flower? I am saying that she was wilting before we met her. She was lonely and sad and did not understand why. Tewu's voice grew gentle. Your Majesty, I lost my wife. I watched my daughter wilt the same way after her mother died. I know what loneliness does to a child. It destroys them slowly from inside. Valina was quiet for a long moment. Then she touched another screen control. This footage was different. It showed Tewu and Sora before they came to the station. It showed them on a refugee ship, crowded with hundreds of humans. It showed Tewu holding his daughter as she cried, promising her that everything would be okay. Then it showed a woman lying on a medical bed, thin and pale. Yuna, Tewu's wife. Your wife gave her food rations to your daughter, Valina said. She starved herself so the child would survive. My intelligence gatherers found the records. Wu felt tears threatening to fall. He forced them back. Yes, that is foolish, Valina said. But her voice lacked conviction. Sacrificing yourself for another is foolish. It is love, Your Majesty. Love makes us do things that seem foolish to those who have never felt it. Valina stared at him for a long time. Then she stood and walked to the window. Outside, stars shone against the endless darkness of space. When Liara's father died, I felt nothing, she said quietly. It was a political marriage. There was no love. When my own mother died, I felt only relief that she could no longer criticize me. I have never felt the kind of love you speak of. She turned to face him. But last night, when my daughter said those words to me, I felt something. I do not know what to call it. It was terrifying and painful, and I wanted to run from it. That is love beginning, Your Majesty. Love beginning. Valina repeated the words like they were in a foreign language. How do I make it continue? Tewu stood slowly. He approached the Empress carefully, like approaching a wild animal that might attack at any moment. You spend time with her. Real time, not official meetings. You listen to her. You tell her she is important, not because she is your heir, but because she is herself. He paused. And you let her keep her friends. Valina's expression flickered. You want me to spare you. I want what is best for your daughter. If that means my death, I will accept it. But I do not believe killing me is what she needs. For the first time, something like respect appeared in Valina's eyes. You truly do not fear death. I fear leaving my daughter alone. But I do not fear death itself. My wife taught me that death is not the end. Love continues even after we are gone. Valina looked at him for a long, heavy moment. Then she walked past him, back to her desk. She touched a communication panel. Summon the court, she said. I have an announcement to make. Tewu's heart nearly stopped. This was it. This was his judgment. But Velina looked at him with an expression he had never seen on her face before. "Come with me, teacher. Let us show the Empire what love looks like." 1 hour later, Tewu stood in the great throne room. Hundreds of Valoran nobles filled the chamber, all of them staring at the human and workers' clothes who stood before their empress. The nobles demanded his death. They called him a criminal, a corrupting influence, a threat to the royal bloodline. Their voices rose like a storm of hatred. Then Empress Velina raised her hand. Silence fell instantly. "This man is no longer a janitor," she announced. Her voice rang through the chamber like a bell. "From this day forward, he is the royal tutor to Princess Leora. His daughter will be raised alongside the princess as her companion." The court erupted in outrage. But Velina's next words cut through the noise like a blade. "Any who challenge this decision may challenge me." Every noble fell silent. No one moved. No one even breathed. Velina looked at Tewu. For just a moment, he saw something warm in her cold violet eyes. "Welcome to the palace, Kang Tewu. I have much to learn from you." And the invisible man finally stepped into the light. Empress Velina was not a patient woman. She had ruled the Valoran Empire for 200 years by being decisive, cold, and absolutely without mercy. Her enemies called her the Ice Empress. Her own people called her the Silver Storm, but no one called her kind. For weeks, Velina had watched her daughter change. Leora no longer sat silently during meals. She hummed strange melodies. She smiled at servants, something Valorans of high blood never did. She used words that sounded ugly and primitive. Human words. Velina's spies could not find the source. Leora's official tutors reported nothing unusual. The guards saw nothing suspicious. But something was happening, and the Empress would discover what. Tonight, she would follow her daughter herself. That it was past midnight when Velina saw Leora slip out of her chambers. The small princess moved like a ghost through the royal halls, avoiding guards with practiced skill. Velina followed at a distance, her silver robes making no sound on the polished floor. Leora descended lower and lower into the station, past the noble quarters, past the merchant levels, down into the areas where common workers lived and worked. Velina felt her anger grow with each step. Her heir, the future empress, was sneaking into the depths of the station like a criminal. This was unacceptable. This was shameful. This would end tonight. Leora finally stopped at a door in the maintenance section. She knocked 3 times in a specific pattern. The door opened, and she disappeared inside. Velina waited 1 minute, then 2. Then she moved forward and opened the door herself. What she saw made her blood turn to ice. A small storage room had been turned into something like a classroom. Old blankets covered the floor. Pictures drawn with colored wax hung on the walls. And in the center of the room sat 3 figures. Her daughter sat on the floor, laughing. Beside her sat a human child with messy hair and a bright smile. And before them both, holding a worn picture book, sat a human man in a worker's uniform. A human was teaching her daughter. A Puma human was making her heir laugh. A human had corrupted everything. Velina stepped into the light. Her presence filled the room like a winter storm. The human man looked up. His eyes widened with terror, but he did not scream. He did not run. Instead, he slowly closed the book and stood up. Then, with careful movements, he positioned himself between the Empress and the children. He was trying to protect them. A lowly human worker was trying to protect children from an Empress. "Your Majesty," he said. His voice trembled, but his words were clear. "Please allow me to explain." "There is nothing to explain." Velina's voice was sharp as broken glass. "I see everything clearly. You have been poisoning my daughter's mind with your primitive culture." "Mother!" Leora jumped up and ran toward her. But guards were already flooding into the room, grabbing the human man and the human child. Taewoo did not fight. Fighting would only make things worse. But when a guard grabbed Sora roughly, his calm broke. "Please," he said desperately. "She is just a child. Punish me, not her. She did nothing wrong." Valina looked at the small human girl. The child was crying, reaching for her father. The sight stirred nothing in the Empress's heart. Humans were beneath her concern. "Take them to the holding cells," Valina ordered. "I will decide their punishment in the morning." "No." Leora grabbed her mother's robe. "Mother, please." "They are my friends." Valina looked down at her daughter with cold eyes. "Friends? You are a princess of the Valoran Empire. You do not have friends. You have subjects, allies, and enemies. These humans are none of those things. They are nothing. They are nothing." Leora's voice was suddenly strong. Stronger than Valina had ever heard it. "They are good and kind, and they care about me. Not because I am a princess, but because I am me." Valina felt a flicker of surprise. Her shy, quiet daughter was arguing with her. Her obedient heir was defying her. This human had done more than teach English. He had given Leora courage, and that made him even more dangerous. "Enough," Valina said coldly. "Return to your chambers. We will discuss your behavior tomorrow." "No." Leora stood her ground. "I will not let you hurt them." The guard shifted uncomfortably. No one had ever seen the princess speak to the Empress this way. No one had ever seen anyone speak to the Empress this way. Valina's hand moved toward the blade at her waist. One swift motion and this human problem would be solved permanently. But Taewoo saw the movement. He stepped forward, even though the guards held his arms. He looked directly at the Empress, meeting her eyes in a way no human had ever dared. "Your Majesty," he said quietly, "I meant no harm to your daughter. She came to me crying and alone. I only gave her what any child deserves. And what is that?" Valina demanded. "A story before bed. A kind word. Someone who listens." Taewoo's voice grew soft. "She was lonely. I know loneliness. My daughter knows loneliness. We did not see a princess. We only saw a sad little girl who needed a friend." Valina stared at him. This human was speaking to her as an equal. Not begging for his life, not groveling for mercy. Simply explaining himself with dignity. It was infuriating. It was confusing. It was impressive. Before Valina could respond, Leora ran to her mother's legs. She wrapped her arms around them and looked up with violet eyes full of tears. "Mother," she said in perfect, clear English, "please do not hurt my teacher." Valina froze. Her daughter was speaking the human language. Speaking it fluently. Speaking it to her. "He taught me many things," Leora continued. "He taught me words and stories. But the most important thing he taught me was how to say something. Something I have always wanted to say to you." Leora took a deep breath. "I love you." The words hung in the air like stars. Valina could not move. She could not speak. She could not even think. Valorans did not say such things. Love was weakness. Affection was a chain that enemies could use against you. Valina had never said those words to anyone, not even to Leora's father before he died. And no one had ever said them to her. The guards watched in stunned silence. The human man stood still, his daughter clutched against his legs. And the Empress of the Valoran Empire stood frozen by 3 simple words. "What did you say?" Valina whispered, "I love you, Mother." Leora smiled through her tears. "I have always loved you, but I did not know how to say it. I did not know it was allowed. Teacher said that humans say it all the time. He says it is not weakness. He says love is the strongest thing in the universe." Valina looked at the human man. Taewoo met her gaze steadily, without fear or hope. He was waiting for his death with the same calm he had shown while reading stories to children. Why? Valina asked him. Why would you risk everything for a child who is not yours? Tae-woo was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke. Because, Your Majesty, no child should feel alone in the dark. Not yours. Not mine. Not anyone's. My wife died believing that kindness was the most important thing in the universe. I am trying to honor her memory by living the same way. Valina's hand slowly moved away from her blade. She looked at her daughter, who was still clinging to her legs. She looked at the human child, who was crying silently in her father's arms. She looked at the walls, covered with colorful pictures of rabbits and stars and 3 figures holding hands. Something was happening inside her. Something strange and uncomfortable. It felt like ice cracking. It felt like pain. It felt like waking up after a very long sleep. Leave us, she said to the guards. The guards hesitated. Your Majesty? I said leave us. Valina's voice echoed through the room. Take the humans to guest quarters in the lower palace. They are not to be harmed. I will send further orders in the morning. The guards obeyed, confused but obedient. They led Tae-woo and Sora away, not to prison cells, but to actual rooms with beds and windows. Valina was left alone with her daughter. Liara looked up at her mother with uncertain eyes. Are you angry? Valina knelt down slowly. It was not something empresses did, but she did it anyway. I am. She paused, searching for words. I am confused. I do not understand what is happening. Love is happening, Liara said simply. Teacher says love changes everything. Valina looked at her daughter. Really looked at her, perhaps for the first time in years. Perhaps, she said slowly, I need to learn more about this love. Liara smiled. It was the brightest smile Valina had ever seen. And somewhere deep inside the Ice Empress, something began to melt. 3 days passed after the meeting in the corridor. Tae-woo tried to forget what happened. He changed his cleaning route to avoid the royal wing completely. He told Sora they must never go near that area again. But Sora kept asking about the silver girl with sad eyes. Do you think she liked the candy, Appa? She would ask during dinner. Do you think she has any friends? She would wonder before sleeping. Tae-woo had no answers. He only had fear. Fear that someone had seen them. Fear that guards would come in the night to take them away. Fear that his one promise to his dying wife would be broken. But the days passed and no one came. Perhaps the corridor had no cameras. Perhaps no one cared about a lonely princess sitting alone in the dark. On the 4th night, something unexpected happened. Tae-woo was cleaning a storage room in the lower maintenance level. Sora sat nearby, reading an old picture book by flashlight. The book was falling apart, but it was one of the few things they had brought from Earth. Tae-woo had read it to Sora 1,000 times. He heard a small sound behind him. When he turned around, his mop fell from his hands. Princess Liara stood in the doorway. She wore a simple silver dress, not the formal robes of royalty. Her feet were bare. Her white hair was messy and uncombed. She looked like she had been walking through the station for hours, and she was completely alone. Tae-woo dropped to his knees immediately. Your Highness, you cannot be here. It is not safe. If someone sees you... But Liara was not looking at him. She was looking at Sora, who had jumped up from her seat with a big smile. You came back, Sora said happily. She ran to Liara and grabbed her hands. I wanted to find you, but Appa said we couldn't go to your part of the station. Liara smiled shyly. She pointed at the picture book in Sora's hand. Then she pointed at herself. Tae-woo watched in confusion. The princess made the gesture again, more desperately this time. She opened her mouth and made sounds, but they were in the Valaran language. Tae-woo did not understand them. Sora, however, seemed to understand perfectly. You want Appa to read to you too? Leora's violet eyes grew bright. She nodded quickly. Taewoo stood up slowly. Your Highness, I am just a cleaner. I cannot. It would not be proper. But Leora walked toward him. She was so small, barely reaching his chest. She looked up at him with eyes full of longing and sadness. Please, she said. It was a human word, spoken with difficulty but clear meaning. Tae-woo understood then. The princess had learned that word just to come here and ask him. She had escaped her guards, walked through the entire station, and found them in the lowest levels all because she wanted someone to read her a story. Tae-woo thought about his wife. Yuna had always said that every child deserves kindness, no matter who they are. She would have welcomed this lonely princess without hesitation. He looked at his daughter, who was watching him with pleading eyes. Then he looked at the princess, who was watching him with the same expression. Against every rule, against every fear, Tae-woo made a decision. All right, he said softly. Sit down. Both of you. The two girls sat on the floor together, shoulders touching. Tae-woo picked up the old picture book and sat on a crate in front of them. The story was about a rabbit who dreamed of seeing the stars. It was simple and sweet, meant for very young children. Tae-woo began to read. Leora did not understand most of the words, but she listened with complete attention. Her violet eyes followed the pictures on each page. When Sora laughed at the funny parts, Leora laughed too. By the end of the story, Leora was leaning against Sora like they had been friends forever. More? She asked hopefully. Tae-woo looked at the time. His shift was almost over, but he found himself nodding. One more. This became their secret. Every few nights, Leora would escape her royal wing and find them in the maintenance levels. Sometimes she came to the storage room. Sometimes she found them in empty corridors. She always came alone, always barefoot, always with that same hopeful look in her eyes. Tae-woo began bringing more books. He traded his food credits for old children's stories from other human workers. Soon he had a small collection hidden in his cleaning cart. And slowly, carefully, he began to teach Leora English. It started simple. He would point at pictures and say the words: dog, cat, star, moon. Leora would repeat them, her accent strange but her determination strong. Sora became the best teacher. She would play games with Leora, speaking simple sentences and acting them out. I am happy. She would smile big. I am sad. She would make a frowning face. I am hungry. She would rub her belly. Lior learned quickly. Within weeks, she could speak in short sentences. Within a month, she could have simple conversations. But more than words, she learned human expressions. She learned to smile with her whole face instead of just her mouth. She learned to laugh loudly instead of covering her mouth. She learned to hug, something Valorans never did. The first time Leora hugged Sora, Tae-woo almost cried. He remembered Sora after Yuna died. His daughter had stopped smiling. She had stopped playing. She had become a shadow of herself, just like Leora had been when they first met her. Friendship saved Sora, and now friendship was saving Leora too. One night, after a reading session, Leora stayed longer than usual. The girls were drawing pictures together while Tae-woo cleaned nearby. Teacher, Leora said suddenly. Tae-woo looked up. Yes, Your Highness? Leora shook her head. Not Highness, just Leora. Tae-woo smiled. All right. Yes, Leora? The princess put down her crayon. Her expression became serious. Why are humans kind? Tae-woo did not understand the question. What do you mean? My tutors say humans are primitive. They say humans are weak and foolish. They say I should not care about humans. Leora's voice grew sad. But you are kind to me. Sora is kind to me. You teach me even though it is dangerous. Why? Taewoo set down his mop. He walked over and knelt beside the princess so they were at the same height. Kindness is not weakness, he said gently. It takes great strength to be kind, especially when others are not kind to you. Liara thought about this. My mother is never kind. The court says she is strong. Taewoo chose his words carefully. There are different types of strength, Liara. Some people are strong with power and fear, but other people are strong with love and care. I think the second type is stronger. Liara's eyes widened. Why? Because power can break. Fear can fade. But love... Taewoo looked at his daughter, who was drawing a picture of the three of them together. Love lasts forever. Liara was quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, she reached out and took Taewoo's hand. I want to be strong with love, she said. Taewoo's heart swelled. He gently squeezed her small silver hand. Then you will be the strongest of all. But they did not know that their secret was not as hidden as they thought. Above them, in the royal wing, servants were whispering about the princess's strange behavior. She smiled now. She hummed human songs. She said odd phrases in a strange language. And in her throne room, Empress Valina listened to these whispers with growing suspicion. Someone was changing her daughter. Someone was filling her heir's head with foreign ideas. The Empress would find out who. And when she did, there would be consequences, severe consequences. The night shift was always quiet on the lower levels of the Valoran Imperial Station. The grand halls above were filled with alien nobles in flowing robes, speaking in their musical language about politics and power. But down here, in the forgotten corridors where pipes leaked and lights flickered, there was only silence and shadows. Kang Taewoo pushed his cleaning cart through the empty hallway. The wheels squeaked against the metal floor, a small sound that echoed in the darkness. He wore the gray uniform of a station worker, simple and plain, with no markings to show his name or his history. To the Valorans, he was just another human, just another refugee from a dying Earth, just another invisible man. But Taewoo did not mind being invisible. Invisible meant safe. Invisible meant his daughter could stay with him during his shifts. Invisible meant they could survive another day. He looked down at the small girl walking beside him. Kang Sora was 8 years old, with bright eyes and messy hair that refused to stay in its ponytail. She carried a warm backpack filled with coloring books and broken crayons. Her shoes were too big for her feet because Taewoo could not afford new ones yet. Appa, she said, using the Korean word for father. Are we almost done? Taewoo smiled softly. Almost, little one. 2 more corridors, then we can have dinner. Sora nodded and continued walking. She never complained about spending her nights in cold hallways while other children slept in warm beds. She never asked why they lived in a tiny room meant for storage equipment. She simply stayed close to her father and found ways to make herself happy. This was their life now. 3 years ago, they had lived on Earth. Taewoo had been a schoolteacher, and his wife Yuna had been a nurse. They had a small apartment with a garden on the balcony. They had been happy. Then the Great Displacement came. Earth became unlivable. Billions of humans scattered across the galaxy, begging alien civilizations for shelter. The Valorans accepted some refugees, but only as workers, only as servants, only as the lowest class of their perfect society. Yuna did not survive the journey. She had given her food rations to Sora and grown too weak. She died holding Taewoo's hand, making him promise to keep their daughter safe, no matter what. Taewoo had kept that promise every single day since. He stopped at a junction in the corridor. One path led to the maintenance tunnels. The other led toward the royal wing, a place where workers were forbidden to go unless specifically called. This way, he said, turning toward the maintenance tunnels. But Sora had stopped walking. She was staring down the forbidden corridor with wide eyes. "Appa, look," she whispered. Tai Wu felt his heart freeze. At the end of the row corridor, sitting alone on the cold floor, was a small figure. The figure had silver skin that glowed faintly in the dim light. Long white hair fell around thin shoulders. It was a child, perhaps 7 years old in human years. It was a Valoran child. And not just any Valoran child. Even from this distance, Taewoo recognized the golden circlet on the child's head. He had seen pictures of it in the station broadcasts. It belonged to Princess Leora, the only daughter of Empress Valina, the ruler of the entire Valoran Empire. Taewoo grabbed Sora's hand. "We need to go. Now." But Sora did not move. She was watching the princess with a strange expression on her face. "Appa, she's crying." Tae-Woo looked again. The princess had her knees pulled to her chest. Her small shoulders were shaking. Faint sounds of sobbing echoed down the corridor. "It's not our concern," Tae-Woo said quickly. "If anyone sees us here, we could be punished. Or worse. The Valorans had strict laws about humans interacting with royalty. Even looking at a royal for too long could result in imprisonment. Touching one meant death. Daewoo pulled Sora's hand again. "Come on." But Sora pulled back. Before he could stop her, she slipped free from his grip and ran down the forbidden corridor. "Sora." Daewoo's voice came out as a desperate whisper. He could not shout. Guards might hear. He could only watch in horror as his daughter ran toward the most dangerous person on the entire station. Sor stopped in front of the crying princess. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, Sora sat down on the floor beside her. Taewoo's legs refused to move. His mind screamed at him to grab his daughter and run. But his body was frozen with fear. Sora reached into her pocket and pulled out something small. It was a piece of candy, wrapped in colorful paper. One of the few treats Taewoo could afford to give her. She had been saving it for days. Without hesitation, Sora held the candy out to the princess. Liora looked up. Her violet eyes were wet with tears. She stared at the small human girl with confusion. No one had ever sat beside her without permission. No one had ever offered her something so simple as candy. Sora smiled. She did not know about royal protocols. She did not care about species or status. She only saw a sad girl who needed a friend. Leora slowly took the candy. She looked at it like it was the most precious treasure in the universe. Taewoo finally found the strength to move. He walked quickly down the corridor, his heart pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. When he reached the two girls, he dropped to his knees and bowed his head to the floor. "Your Highness," he said, his voice trembling, "please forgive us. My daughter did not mean to disturb you. We will leave immediately." He reached for Sora's hand, but the princess moved faster. Leora grabbed Sora's other hand and held it tight. Her small fingers wrapped around Sora's with surprising strength. "No," Leora said. Her voice was soft, barely above a whisper. "Stay." Taewoo looked up, shocked. The princess was looking at Sora with an expression he had never seen on a Valoran face before. Hope. Sora looked at her father with questioning eyes. Taewoo did not know what to do. Every rule said he should take his daughter and run. Every instinct told him this was dangerous beyond measure. But the princess looked so small, so lonely, so much like Sora had looked in those first months after her mother died. Leora slowly unwrapped the candy and put it in her mouth. Her eyes widened at the taste of sweetness. A tiny smile appeared on her silver face. "Friend?" she asked Sora, speaking the single human word with difficulty. Sora's face lit up with the brightest smile Taewoo had seen since Earth. "Friend." She agreed. Taewoo watched his daughter. laugh with an alien princess in a forbidden corridor. And he knew that nothing would ever be the same again. He should have been terrified. He should have been planning their escape. Instead, for just one moment, he let himself feel something he had not felt in 3 years. Hope that they stayed for only a few minutes. When Tewu finally convinced the girls to part, Leora made Sora promise to come back. Sora promised without hesitation. Tewu led his daughter away, back to their small room in the lower levels. He did not sleep that night. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about violet eyes and a single word spoken in broken English. Friend. In the royal wing above. A small princess also lay awake. She held an empty candy wrapper in her hand, like it was made of gold. For the first time in her life, she had met someone who did not bow and scrape and speak in formal language. She had met someone who simply saw her as a girl. And somewhere in the shadows of the station, cameras recorded everything. In the morning, those recordings would reach the desk of Empress Valena. But for now, in the quiet darkness of the night, 2 little girls dreamed of friendship. And one invisible man began to wonder if perhaps being seen was not so dangerous after all.